Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the iHeartRadio network. And we are listening to people from all over the world talking about Charlton and Big C. Do you know that iHeartRadio is the #1 media company in the United States? And Charlton and Big C Sports were voted the hottest sports show in the universe, Big C. So I don't know who can dispute that, Big C. That's a big reach with the iHeartRadio network. Also want to say thank you to all of our Latin American listeners. So bienvenidos to you in Latin America. Of course, you good old boys from London, England, as well as Paris, France. And, of course, we want to thank all the great people out in Canada. Oh, Canada. I even heard Mike and Mike trying to sing the Canadian national anthem, Big C. I think he was reading it, though, Big C. I'm going live extemporaneous. And also, I want to thank you good old boys from Australia. We know that you love Charlton and Big C Sports Down Under. And hello, Big C. Speaking of Down Under, how's it going for you good old boys Down Under, Big C, in the South, Big C?
Well, you know, we're down here. We're worried about the hurricane that's coming here to the East Coast. You know, the winds are picking up and the rains are coming. We need the rain. We don't need the winds and the hurricane. And, you know, you hope all the best for those people, Charles, especially in that embellished country of Haiti.
Yeah.
Poorest country in the world, but it's an African-American nation.
Yeah.
You know, and so it gets no help from the world. And, you know, Cuba will get a lot of relief now that they've opened up trade.
Yeah.
You know, with the Western Hemisphere, you know, you'll see all kind of relief pouring there. But, you know, just your thoughts and prayers go out to those people who are in harm's way of Mother Nature, and there's nothing can be done about it.
Yeah, we always want to be grateful for what we have, Big C, especially for anyone undergoing some challenges. You know, keep your head up. Hopefully the world will step up and help them. But we know that hurricanes are very serious business out there, Big C. And we know tonight on Charlton and Big C Sports, we have a lot of things to cover, Big C. We have baseball starting out for the playoffs. And this is the time of the year that baseball is actually fun, Big C, when you have Toronto up in Canada taking our first game. They could start out right about at the time that we're on the air, Big C. They're playing the Baltimore Orioles. I think you call it the Birds against the Birds, Big C. And Baltimore, the Birds versus the Birds. And then we have Baltimore. They're starting Chris Tillman. And Toronto is going with Marcus Stroman. But, you know, when you think about baseball, and it's a miracle sport, but the first game is being played actually in Canada, the country with the great national anthem, Big C. Your thoughts about Toronto and how they may fare in this game against Baltimore, Big C?
Well, let's put it this way, Charlton. Right off the back, they'll get old Canada right.
They're going to get it right.
There won't be no dispute about that. They may even do it bilingual in French also because it's a dual-speaking country.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true, Big C.
Toronto has won 2 World Series in the past. You think about the Joe Carter beating off in the early 90s, beating the Phillies off Mitch Williams, you know, coming in as a relief pitcher. But, you know, they won back-to-back World Series with Cito Gaston, an African-American. Manager of the team. Yeah. The Olds, you know, right now the Olds are hot, Charlton. They've hit the 5th most home runs all time in baseball this season.
That's amazing.
They remind me of the Earl Weaver days when he was there back in the late 60s, early 70s, when they had the smash gang there in Baltimore. You had great players like Frank Robertson, Boone Powell. You know, these guys could hit the ball out of the yard, Umbry. Yeah. You know, and so this could be an exciting series. The thing about tonight's game, Charlton, is both pitchers that are starting have a plus in ERA. Yeah. So it's gonna be a hitter's night. We may see 15, 20 runs scored in this game tonight, Charlton.
What did T.O. tell us? Get your popcorn ready. They may have to get their baseball gloves ready, Big C. We're giving up hits like that. But also a great thing about the game of baseball and starting out in Canada. You know, we always talk about how great this country is, the United States of America. But I know many athletes that have played up in Canada, whether it's baseball or even when they had basketball and football. And ironically, they say that the Canadians treat African Americans better. They get a better reception up there than they do here in the United States, Big C. And I know sometimes going in and out of different athletes and different broadcast venues, have you found that to be the case at all, Big C?
Well, you know, you think about the Underground Railroad years ago, Charlton, when slaves were running for freedom. Up north. Where did they run? They ran up north to Canada. Yeah. You know, so it started back in those days when you think about it. And Canada is such a breathtaking country. Been there several times, and you know, nothing but open arms from the people of that great nation. Yeah. Very friendly, very cordial. You know, I remember the first time I was there years ago. and walking down the street and people saying hello, and I'm turning around thinking it's somebody behind.
Yeah.
They were addressing me. But you look at the hospitality. It's a world country. They've had the Olympics, the Winter Olympics. They've hosted.
Yeah.
The Toronto Raptors have become one of the more dominant teams in the NBA East.
Yeah.
We've talked about the Toronto Blue Jays winning the World Series.
Yeah.
And let's not talk about Canada. It's all around.
Yeah.
You got the Montreal Canadiens, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah.
All of these teams that have represented well throughout the history of hockey. And Wayne Gretzky, probably the greatest export Canada's ever had.
Oh, yeah.
Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah.
5 consecutive championships. So they have done a wonderful job, the Canadian people and country, as far as representing the sports world.
Yeah.
And being great ambassadors, Charlton.
And speaking of being great ambassadors, this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go down and test drive it, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. And Big C, I keep telling people, every time I hear you talk about things, I tend to hear about it. I think Mike, he tried to sing the old Canada song this morning, but I see more and more people leaving their Cadillacs muddy in California. I thought it was because we had a water drought, but I think what you're doing is catching on, Big C.
Well, I might have to take it up to Canada because I know they get a lot of water up there, a lot of snow, and go up into the Yukon. Matter of fact, Niagara Falls, Charlton, is right there on the Canadian border. So, if I need a car wash, I can drive right through.
No, don't drive through the Niagara Falls, Big C. It's a good ride, but I don't think the Cadillac Escalade floats on water yet, Big C. So be careful up there. But also, when you talk about the world of sports and baseball, and another great game we're going to have tomorrow when it comes to the wild card games, Big C. You're going to have the San Francisco Giants, and ironically, they're back on the East Coast where they started. They're going to be playing up against the Mets, and they're going to be throwing Madison Bumgarner, who's just a stud of a pitcher. And for the second time in 3 seasons, the Giants will send Bumgarner out to the mound to take a National League wild card game, and he's going up against the Mets. And the Mets have their own great pitcher, too, in Noah Syndergaard. So it's a game that the Giants, obviously, if the past equals the future, the Giants can probably get out of there with a win, Big C, and then they'll go on and face Chicago. Just your thoughts on 2 good pitchers. They've all had great seasons, Big C. Bumgarner's 15-9, and he has a 2.74 ERA. And then Syndergaard, he's 14-9 with a 2.60 ERA. That game's tomorrow on the ESPN, Big C.
Well, this is great for the city of New York, Charlton. To have a team, baseball's always good when New York has a team, whether it's the Yankees or the Mets.
Oh, yeah.
The Mets have won the World Series a few times in their past. And Syndergaard, will do a wonderful job at home.
Yeah.
But Baumgartner's a beast.
Oh, he's a stud. Yeah.
And big old country boy who, might, want to go out like me and go out the backwoods.
Yeah, I wonder if he has moonshine in the back of his garage too, Big C. We talked about you have that moonshine shop in the back of your garage, and I was just...
What do you think he soaked his arm in, man?
Yeah, I know. But someone was telling me, does Big C really tie people up in the backyard? I say, actually, all the good old boys, when you try to get that moonshine, they don't call the sheriff. They just tie you up themselves, Big C. So be careful when you go out and get the good old boys moonshine. And also, when you think about baseball, we know baseball is a great game. And this is a time of year where you can really see the pageantry of the sport. I like the way they put the bunting all over the stadiums. And if they're up in Toronto, I think it's still called Sky Dome, or is it by the CNN Tower? That's a gorgeous...
I think it's Rogers Center now.
Rogers Center now?
That line.
Yeah, that's a gorgeous place to play baseball. They also have football up there too, Big C. But I just want to get a little bit into the NFL. There's a few things have happened today in the NFL. We saw the great game last night by the Vikings defense. And talk about stadiums. Whoever designed the Minnesota Vikings stadium, they actually hit a home run. That is a gorgeous ballpark, Big C. Just your thoughts on that. They started in a municipal stadium, which was open air, and then they went to the Metrodome, which only lasted about 20 years. But now this new ballpark is state-of-the-art. It's a gorgeous, has great sight lines, and you can even see downtown from the inside. Just a great atmosphere. What do you think of that stadium, Big C?
Well, I think a lot of that stadium. You mentioned Municipal Stadium there in Charlton. That was a stadium that the Vikings represented 4 different Super Bowls for the NFC.
Yeah.
Out of the stadium. It was originally a baseball stadium. They tried to convert it into a football facility. It worked for as long as it could.
Yeah.
But once they moved into the Metrodome, they weren't the purple people eaters anymore. But I think they regained that.
Yeah.
And when you think about the Vikings defense, it has to remind you of the monsters of the Midway, the 85 Bears.
Yeah.
In 4 games, the Vikings have only given up 50 points, Charles. You think about that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's less than 2 touchdowns a game that the Vikings defense is averaging giving up. And if you can do that throughout an NFL season, you're going to be very successful. The Vikings are 4-0. No one expected that with the new quarterback,
Yeah.
the loss of the starting quarterback and running back. But did they become a better team, Charles?
Yeah.
But the loss of those key players, Matt Khalil, Adrian Peterson, and Teddy Bridgewater, what happens is other players realize they have to step up.
Yeah.
They have a larger role to play when you lose key players, that you can't depend on those guys. You have to depend on yourself and each other.
Yeah.
And when you think about Sam Bradford, he had, 103, 104 quarterback ratings last night against the Giants?
He was amazing.
He played abysmal defensively.
Yeah.
But Sam Bradford, you got to remember, he was the number 1 overall draft pick when he came out of University of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So that meant he was never a bad quarterback. He's just a quarterback that's had bad luck with injuries throughout his career.
Oh, yeah, and when you think about last night's game, it's a game won 24-10 by the Minnesota Vikings. They were in control the whole time, and I know that, they got rid of the Giants' Grizzly coach last year, but that really hasn't turned things around for them.
Coughlin.
Yeah, and I thought Coughlin should have had at least another year or two there, Big C, because he added.
Went to the Super Bowl, Charlton. You got to get some leeway.
Yeah.
And, people blame Tom Coughlin.
I agree.
But still, they have Eli Manning, who in the fourth quarter will throw a lead for you.
Yeah.
I mean, and like we said last night, the Vikings only want the game to be close because in the fourth quarter, they know Eli Manning will help them win.
And you're right.
They didn't even have to get to the fourth quarter, but he didn't do anything in the fourth quarter. And Charlton, think about this in his career.
Yeah.
Eli Manning has led the interception in his professional career, led the NFL in interceptions in the fourth quarter throughout his entire NFL career. That's an abominable stat to have, but that's one of the things that's not talked about here.
Yeah.
They will talk about Cam Newton having low completion percentage in a game.
Yeah.
They will talk about Russell Wilson not having more than 200 yards passing.
Yeah.
Things along that line.
Well,
but here's a guy who has a career record for interceptions in the fourth quarter of a guy who's played that lane.
And he's still making that $100 million contract, Big C. You look at
$122 million.
I'm sorry. I shortchanged him $22 million. I'm sure you call the bank teller. I shortchanged him $22 million. He must have thought he was at Wells Fargo Bank, Big C. They've been shortchanging all their customers, Big C. And also, you look at the passing. They passed for 261 yards last night. Bradford passed for 262 yards, and he's a guy that's been bouncing around the league, but Bradford led a great drive, and he commanded that game very well for the Vikings, and they're very tough. You talk about how good they are, too, Big C, for the Minnesota Vikings. They've only given up 50 points this year. They've only scored 88, but they're undefeated, and I got to tell you, they look like a team. If they can win out, at least at home, and that's a great environment, a great advantage, looking for the Vikings again back into the playoffs, Big C. Another game.
Well, Charles, think about their division.
Yeah.
Who's in their division? Chicago Bears?
Chicago Bears.
Abysmal.
The Bears.
Detroit Lions?
Yeah.
Abysmal.
Yeah, 1-3.
Packers? So-so.
So-so, 2-1.
If nothing else, they should win at least 7 games in their division. They may split with the Packers, but they've already beat the Packers.
Yeah, that's true.
They should go, win them all in their division.
Well, I think you're very true about that. And also, when you look around the league, a few more things have happened too, Big C. If you look at the Vikings, number one, having the best record right now, especially in the NFC, and you know that they're also waiting for Peterson. They're saying, which I don't agree with, but they're saying he could probably get back before the end of the season. The way technology is right now, maybe he can, but we know Bridgewater's lost for the whole season. But is this a thing where you destroy chemistry? Look at what's happening down in Dallas with Prescott just lighting up the Dallas Cowboys offense. There's still some talk with Jerry Jones that Romo may come back if he's healthy. Why would you interfere with something that's working? I mean, does that make any sense at all, Big C?
Well, down in Jerry world, when you're the head coach, you make decisions like that.
You said Jerry Jones is the head coach, Big C?
He's the head coach of the GM. He might be, the line guy down there. I'm not exactly sure. But, when you think about the chemistry that the Dallas Cowboys are developing right now.
With a young guy.
I understand the relationship that you have with Troy Aikman over his history there. But Troy Aikman has never really done done anything great in Dallas.
Right.
You know, they've had maybe 2 winning seasons with him at quarterback.
Yeah, under Romo.
Making the playoffs.
Under Romo, yeah.
Under Romo.
Yeah.
But when you look at Dak Prescott, he's gotten the team off to a 3-1 start. This is as good a start as he's had in decades.
And ironically, with a great start like that, just think of the contrast in media again. And I love bringing it up because you don't hear it elsewhere. Now, Prescott has the Cowboys rolling. They were down 14-0. They outscored the 49ers 24-3 after they were down, and he's the one who led the charge. They're talking about should he sit the bench if Romo gets healthy. But you look at Carson Wentz across in Philadelphia, no one's talking about sitting the bench, Big C. And I'm telling you that Prescott's just impressive. Yeah.
Look at this in Dallas. He's without his left side of his starting offensive line. Lyle Collins and Smith, the guard and tackle, they're out. They didn't play against San Francisco, so he had 2 backup offensive linemen demonstrating the success that he had.
Yeah.
So when you talk about should he play or should he not play, he has the mobility, he has the speed, and the strength. Romo cannot run and have that escapability that Dak Prescott brings. And that brings that second dimension to the quarterback position that we've seen teams recently with these young players have a lot of success. In Denver, you look at him, Russell Wilson has that mobility. Quarterbacks that can move. Alex Smith, Aaron Rodgers for years, people say, well, he's a mobile quarterback. His butt will run as quick as anybody.
That's true, Big C. Also, there's something about Andrew Luck. And again, you know, you bring up things about these guys that make $100 million or $100+ million. You know, Andrew Luck, he hasn't been that great stat-wise either since he's come into the league, Big C.
Andrew Luck, statistically, Charlton, has been in the bottom tier of all quarterbacks since he's come into the league. Yes, they made the playoffs a couple of times.
Yeah.
But he has not been productive. Look at what he did last year, even though he got lost after the 4th and 5th game of the season.
Yeah.
But look at him this year. He's 1-3 as a starter. You would think he would be better. And see, everybody, Dolphin, wants to blame the rest of the team. They want to blame the offensive line.
Yeah.
They want to blame the wide receivers. T.J. Hilton is as good as any receiver in the game.
Yeah.
He's an all-pro wide receiver.
Yeah.
At what point do you start looking at Andrew Luck and saying maybe he just doesn't have it?
Yeah.
Yes, he's been a prototypical guy coming out of college. He was projected into greatness. But at some point, you got to say greatness is not there. We see that a lot. Jay Cutler, perfect example.
Yeah.
Matthew Stafford, perfect example. These guys are the #1 overall draft pick. Look how quick Doug Williams was cut from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after being the #1 draft pick overall.
Yeah.
They got rid of him after 5 years.
Yeah.
Look at Steve Young by Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
What did both of those quarterbacks do, Charlton? They went on to quality organizations, and I think they picked up this thing called the Lombardi Trophy.
Yeah.
At points in their career.
Yeah.
They led their team to record wins. Doug Williams threw record touchdowns against Denver.
Yeah. And they fired
Young
him.
threw record touchdowns against San Diego.
Yeah.
So
they fired Doug Williams after 5 touchdowns against Denver because he made John Elway look bad. They said we can't have one of them making John Elway look bad, if you know what I mean, Big C.
Looking very pedestrian that day, Charles.
Yeah, that's so funny. And also, when you look around the league, there's a few more things coming up too that we'll talk about. A couple of players been released, but this segment is also sponsored by your California Lottery. When you think about what a buck can do for you on Charlton and Big C Sports, the hottest show in the universe, the #1 sports show in the universe. Actually, we were voted #1, Big C. I just want to ask you now, when you good old boys got into the garage and you voted Charlton and Big C Sports #1, Big C, was there anyone contesting that vote, Big C?
Well, you know, we got a beat back from that shit called Enterprise on Star Trek.
Yeah, Captain Kirk.
I figured at that point, when they tweeted us, we were somewhere in the universe, so that had to make us #1 in the universe.
Now, you know how you good old boys roll down south. We don't want any hanging chads like Al Gore had to deal with, okay? So I hope that vote sticks out, the #1 sports show in the universe, Charlton and Big C Sports, worldwide, Monday through Friday on the iHeartRadio Network. And when you think of iHeartRadio Network, look at some of the sports that we're covering now. When you look at the Colts, they actually released Antonio Cromartie, and you think about they always want to build something around protecting Luck, but the Colts just lost a game to Jacksonville. That game was across the pond in London. And Blixie, would you believe that the NFL in the betting, you know how people like to bet, you good old boys down south bet all the time? It was 10 times more the game in London. The bets in London were 10 times more than a normal game here in the United States. Does that tell you that the NFL in Las Vegas might be going across the pond, Big C?
Well, what Charlton, that's called money mongering. These guys know what the dollars lie at. That's split money in Europe. and the Jags are going to be over there. They have a commitment for the next 5 years of playing a game in London, England. So they understand it's a cash win. And generally, that's their only sellout of the year, Charles.
Yeah.
But, you got to give praise to their defense. They sacked Andrew Luck 6 times in that game, Charlton.
Yeah.
6 times. So, you give a quarterback $144 million and you take $4 million and split it up in front of his offensive line.
Yeah.
So who's going to be the top performer? Not the offensive lineman.
That's funny.
He's making $144 million. He's got to make some plays on his own, they're going to say, from time to time.
Especially if he puts his money in Wells Fargo Bank, because they'll take that $144 million, Big C. They'll make some own accounts under their employee's name, Big C. I think that's so egregious when you talk about the betting that goes on in the world of football, and then Wells Fargo Bank, they steal their customers' money, Big C, and there's hardly any talk about it outside of a fine in the newspaper, Big C. But also, back into the world of the NFL, the Baltimore Ravens, they also released Justin Forsett. Now, did they say that they had an amicable separation, Big C? Does that make any sense, Big C?
It's amazing when you cut a player, not release, but cut a player. And you say he's okay. That's what he wanted. He wanted to be cut. Now, this is the second time in 5 weeks they've cut this player, Charles.
Yeah.
They cut him at the last week of preseason.
Yeah.
After the last preseason game for the roster cut down.
Yeah.
Now they cut him again 4 weeks into the season.
Yeah.
So what part of that is amicable? He took a pay cut to come back. Then you cut him again. Maybe he had some bonus incentives if he was on the roster, certainly at the time.
Yeah.
They would cut him.
Yeah.
I mean, they would have to pay him, but instead they cut him. So I've never known in all of my years of playing and broadcasting that release of a player to be amicable, because all of a sudden your employment is stopped.
Yeah.
Tell me which one of our listeners would like to go to work. Say, look, I don't like working here anymore.
Yeah.
But I want you to fire me so I can go home and not have a job.
Well,
I got bills to pay and a family to feed.
Well, I remember back in the day, I was dating this good old girl, and she, for some reason, we used to disagree a lot about different things, and I used to always tell her my opinion, Big C. And one day, she gave me a pink slip. She fired me. So my friends say, Harry, what happened to you and your old girl? I said, we had an amicable separation. Actually, said, no, she dumped me for another guy that listened, Big C. So I learned my lessons back in the day. And also, speaking of learning our lessons, when you think about the Tampa Bay situation, we talked about that with a young quarterback in Winston, and they have to get back on track again. But Tom Brady's coming back to the New England Patriots. Now, your good old friend, who's that big guy that bullies people around? You know the way you guys do it, Big C? What's his name? Richie Incognito, Big C? He acts like you, Big C, once you had too many sips of moonshine, Big C.
Well, we can't call him a bully. He only got suspended for half a season for bullying a teammate got cut.
Yeah.
You can't put that kind of label on him.
Why,
boy from Nebraska.
Why is he going after Bill Belichick, trying to taunt Bill Belichick? Bill Belichick didn't do anything wrong other than beat him all the time, except for the last couple of times, Big C.
But you gotta let your frustration out on someone, but you don't go over to the coach and do that. And that's where the league office has to step in and send him a little memo, an email or whatever, saying, hey, put some money in an envelope for a donation. That's classless. I mean, even the Bills organization, that's classless to let your player. And I know it's hard to stop a 330-pound offensive lineman from running out on the field doing things, but you have to set a precedent of the league. The coaches are protected. That's why, like in the college game, you see coaches boring around with security officers, actually active police and troopers at their side all the time. The NFL doesn't warrant that, but they do have a security level. But to have players going up trying to intimidate a coach who had nothing to do with the win or the loss physically on the field. That's out of the boundaries of the game and the integrity of the game. And this is one of those moves, and I know Goodell and Incognito's had their situations in the past, but this is one, when we talk about the bullying, this gives credence to the bullying allegations against him and the foundation for his suspension a few years ago, Charlton.
And when you think about that, too, and sometimes people don't take that and just keep it on the field. I just want to bring this up because we are pro-women, we are anti-discrimination, we are anti-homophobia, we're anti-anything that's bad that doesn't treat people fair. I just want to bring this up because sports is a galvanizing business. It's a billion-dollar industry, and with Charlton and Big C Sports, you can follow sports worldwide and even throughout the universe, Big C. But I just want to bring this up because it's something that's very poignant. Half of the people who follow sports in the United States, they're women, Big C. And I want everyone to understand that statistics are staggering when it comes to this. We talk about athletes being bullies, but the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, they're saying that 20 people per minute are physically abused in the United States. or by an intimate partner. That means for you good old boys down south, somebody that they like, someone they're in a relationship with, Big C. And I think we bring that up because it's this time of year that it tends to happen more so than not, Big C. That's why I think with guys like Incognito, who was sent out of the league for a year for bullying, I don't know what they put him on, some type of medication or something, but they need to give him some more. But what happens to women when they're in these environments? They don't have an officiating crew to separate them from someone who's doing that. I'm not saying he's accused of that type of violence, but if you're a man and you know any woman going through that garbage, please call 911. We got to keep our women safe. And if you want to be safer, listen to Charlton and Big C Sports, because we'll remind you of that. It can't just be one commercial that the NFL ran once or twice a year, Big C. Your thoughts on that?
Well, it's very true. And like we talked about Incognito, you know, this is a pattern that he's demonstrated in the past.
Yeah.
And, you know, what goes on eventually will come to the light of day. He did it in the light of day, Charlton, so he showed his true character as an individual. You know, for disrespect, unappreciative, you don't do that as a player. You know, you go celebrate with your teammates. You don't taunt and go after the head coach. Now, there's taunting rules in the NFL against players. Yeah. You taunt a player, you cost your player. You taunt an opposing player, you cost your team 15 yards. Yeah. But, you know, to let this type of behavior go unwarranted by the league and the team sets a bad precedent, because eventually you're going to get one of these players run over a coach. What do you do at that point, Charles?
Well, who was that player, Big C, that went up in the NBA that went up into the made a world peace now?
Rodman and Jackson. It was Indianapolis Pacers and Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, so when you don't stop that type of garbage, now the difference is one guy was African American. Now Cognito did not punch Bill Belichick, but I think you have to put a stop to that if you're Goodell. You have these 350-pound men, even having the taunting going on against the coach. I mean, Belichick can't fight the guy, but I just think they have to put an end to that kind of behavior. And the guy is already would be like his second or third offense, Big C. That's something that Goodell should definitely look at. But also around the NFL with Tom Brady coming back should be more exciting football to look at for this week coming up, Big C. And just to touch on some of the things that happen also in the world of sports, just a side note from football, you know, we talk about fines and suspensions, and some people are taking illegal substances. Now, there's a tennis player, I think it's Sharapova or Kornikova, right?
Well, Maria Sharapova.
But Sharapova, I think they did.
With banned substance.
Yeah, and I think they lessened her fine by about 9 months, Big C. Your thoughts on that?
I mean, you know, and that's a very egregious scenario, Charlton.
Yeah.
I know tennis is lacking superstars, but you're giving former superstars a pass. You're saying you can break the rules, you can win using steroids. Yeah. It's okay because you're blue-eyed and blonde. Matter of fact, we're going to give you 2 years. Nah, that's too much. That's like the swimmer in Stanford being released after 3 months. Yeah. After being convicted of rape. Yeah. So when you look at these things, and so you're telling certain ethnic groups that you can use the drugs, just like Incognito. Yeah. You know, he was kicked out of the league for bullying, but he was let back in. Where's Ray Rice? Ray Rice still can't get a job.
Still can't find a job, Big C. And also this kid.
Look at the kid Brown, the punter from the New York Giants. Yeah. 20 calls to the police department in the city of New York for domestic violence against his wife. He got a 1-game suspension from the NFL. Wow. So there's a double standard when you're looking at the treatment of ethnicity in sports, Charlton. Yeah. It's okay to do it if you're certain ethnicity.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because we got to change that. And speaking of changing that, this segment is sponsored by United Labor, guaranteed $100,000 life insurance with no medical questions. We are also endorsed by the American Heart Association and the American Cancer Society. Tweet out to Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network if you're looking for work. We also work under all of the unions of the AFL and CIO, and we're looking again to put over 1,000 insurance brokers to work. Tweet out to Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network, the #1 network in the world, actually in the United States. But Charlton and Big C Sports is the #1 sports network in the universe, Big C. So I appreciate your thoughts on that. And also, when you look around, we were talking about the NFL, and we have a lot more things to talk about when it comes to players. You know, you think about what happened in the games over the weekend, and we talked about the Vikings beating the Giants last night, 24-10, a great stadium there. Chip Kelly. And I tell you, I think Chip Kelly's still auditioning for the USC job, Big C, because he's still saying that he stands behind Blaine Gabbert. And I want Gabbert to do well because he's out here in Northern California. I would love to cover more playoff games when it comes up, Big C. But if you can't find a quarterback who got beaten by a rookie quarterback, they were up 14 points. You spot anyone in the NFL a 14-point cushion, and you're at home in front of a big crowd, and you have a guy that was playing in college football last year. He comes in and wins that game, and Kelly is still sticking up for a guy that's won 8 games in his 5 years, Big C. What's up with Chip Kelly? Is it that obvious that he's auditioning for the USC position?
You know, maybe Chip Kelly doesn't have any power. You know, he's Trent Baalke with all
Wow.
the power. You know, you could have a Dallas Cowboys scenario there in San Francisco right now. You bring in a coach because you figure that he's more high profile than the one you paid $14.7 million to for 1 year.
Yeah.
And thinking that you'll get more and tell him if he plays this quarterback in his system. But he's running plays that Kaepernick could run, Charlton.
Yeah.
And Kaepernick has escapability in these plays.
Yeah.
Where you're not going to get that from Gabbard. He's a lumbering 6'5" kid. He's not a blazing sprinter such as a Kaepernick. He's not the athlete. His arm is not bigger than Kaepernick. So,
Yeah.
you know, you have to question the decision making in San Francisco right now. Are they trying to win, Charlton?
That's something.
You know,
yeah.
It doesn't look like it. And with Navarro Bowman being gone, that defensive leader that they had,
What a shame.
they're really going to struggle now.
Yeah, and that's Navarro Bowman. He blew up the knee. You remember in the NFC Championship game up in Seattle several years ago. And I think the quarterback was Colin Kaepernick, Big C. I mean, I don't think Blaine Gabbert's ever been anywhere near a championship game.
Yes, he has. He's on sitting there like you and I.
Okay, he was sitting there too. At least we had a media. Okay, at least we had a media pass, Big C. But I just think that's ironic when you look at that. And right across the bay, they're doing everything right here in the Bay Area with Carr just setting the world on fire. Really like that young man, the way he plays. But I want to get a thought back, too, when we look at some of the games coming up this week, Big C. Just your thought, San Diego, they're playing the Raiders, and that game is 1:25 p.m. on Sunday. But on a Thursday night, you have Arizona, and they're at San Francisco. That game's going to be at 5 o'clock p.m., a 5:25 kickoff start. I don't think you'll see a Kaepernick in that game because it's a short week notice. And for some reason, and you just make me think about it, maybe it has nothing to do with Chip Kelly. I think they're going to put Gabbard out there again. But you're really telling the 49er season ticket holders that they're not even trying to win this year. It just doesn't make any sense. If it's not working, why would you stick with it, Big C? Your thoughts on that?
Well, this is sort of the scenario you had in Washington last year with a Robert Griffin when he was replaced by Kirk Cousins. And I think they were hoping that Lightning would strike twice in the same position. And it's just not occurring with Gabbard. I mean, he's there. He was a proven unsuccessful quarterback in Jacksonville. He had only 1 year as a starter at the University of Missouri, backing up Chase Daniels there, who's the backup now in Philadelphia, who's become a journeyman in the NFL. But he's never proven himself. Charlton, he got his 8th win of his career the first week of the season. The 8th win of his career.
Wow.
Trevor Siemian in Denver has 4 wins already in his rookie year. Basically, his rookie year as a starter in the NFL.
Yeah.
Carson Wentz has 3.
Yeah.
And so when you look at what these quarterbacks have done in comparison to what Gabbard, they say, well, he's been with a bad team. It's like saying Andrew Luck, all the players around him are bad.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to point the finger at the guy putting the key in the switch.
Yeah, you do.
And, he's inept.
Yeah.
And that's what you've gotten from Blaine Gabbard. Not knocking the man as a person,
right,
but as a talent he does not possess.
Well, just being someone who's followed the 49ers for about the last 30 years, I did see guys like Brody. I did see guys like Joe Montana. I did see guys like Steve Young, even Garcia, and then to have Kaepernick. And these guys went to the Super Bowl, or at least they were in the playoffs, Big C. And it's just
all Pro Bowl players.
All Pro Bowl players, Big C. So nothing against Gabbard, but if someone's not ready, you don't put him out there and let him destroy the whole organization just so the media or the owner could be right. I think DeBartolo would have made a much more shrewd move, Big C, especially a guy like Bill Walsh. They didn't just lose for the sake of losing and trying to prove a point. Maybe they're afraid of this this social stance that he has taken that helps all people understand that there is some issues in our society. And I think that for some reason they're willing to let the 49ers organization go down. They just built $1 billion stadium. It doesn't make any sense, Big C. But also, as we look around the league, I just want to get your thoughts on a couple of games coming up, Big C. And we have what I think can be a great game is the New York Jets at Pittsburgh, because the Steelers are dominant, but I don't think the Jets can play real bad 2 weeks in a row, Big C. Is that a catch-up, kind of a sneak-em game, Big C, coming up?
No, make it 3 weeks in a row.
Okay.
Matt Ryan will, throw a couple more picks.
Yeah.
You got to look at how the Steelers looked last week. Big Ben,
amazing.
He he had Le'Veon Bell back in the backfield, as we talked about, who would make a difference in the game.
Yeah.
They not only put him in the backfield, they can put him out in the slot. He's a tough matchup on a linebacker. You either got to waste the safety or put a linebacker on him that can't cover Charlton. And with that dynamic receiving core that Pittsburgh has, and Big Ben got some time in the pocket. I think he might have went along and put a little boot in a couple offensive linemen's butt. but he and Mike Tomlin won.
Yeah.
And Mike Tomlin might even walk into the offensive line meeting and say, look, gentlemen, I know you love it here in Pittsburgh,
yeah.
but a couple of you might be changing area codes if you don't string up.
Well, I like Tomlin as a coach. And just think about it, too, and I'll bring it up because he was even rumored to be on the hot seat because he took the Steelers to the Super Bowl, but he didn't take them to as many as he took them twice, Big C. But obviously, you know, when you talk about the complexion of certain coaches and players, there's definitely not the same kind of coverage, Big C. And also, when you think about another game that could be a game that might be closer than some people think, that might be a joke to say that. But when you look at New England going to Cleveland, Tom Brady, could he be rusty? They don't even have a backup to come in and take care of it. If he does look a little bit rusty, Big C, they're at Cleveland. Would this be a game which is it's such a bizarre thing where the Patriots get shut out? I don't see them losing back-to-back. But is this a kind of a catch-em game that Las Vegas has some hands on, Big C, going to Cleveland?
Well, you know, I think Brady will be okay. He has to put some clothes on to play in this game. He can't walk around and stadium news like he was doing on the beach.
Oh, I didn't see that part, Big C. I didn't know he partied that way, Big C.
He was over the Riviera walking around Sundays.
It's not his fault. It's the coaches. What do you call it? Some things that happen in the Riviera stay in the Riviera, or is that Las Vegas, Big C?
Well, you know, when you think about Brady's a consummate professional, Charles.
Yeah.
He can walk in at any time and be in rhythm.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the reasons that Gronk held out. Yeah, he may have been slightly injured.
Yeah.
But he wanted to come back to work with Brady so he would be fresh and not get nicked.
Yeah.
And you think about the receiving core, how well it's performed without him.
Yeah.
The defense, I mean, they didn't play bad. They limited Buffalo to 16 points last week?
Yeah.
So basically, Buffalo scored one touchdown and kicked 3 field goals.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they gave up one touchdown.
Yeah.
So, you know, people think that the Patriots went in the tank because they gave up one touchdown defensively.
Yeah.
This is a tremendous organization, Charlton.
Yeah.
And they're going to be motivated.
Yep.
They're going to be downright motivated. It's going to get hot. And Cleveland, I mean, this is a team that's teetering. They got robbed last week by the officials playing the Redskins. There was one fumble that the running back had. He comes up out of the pile with the ball, and they get the ball to the Redskins. He's standing there while everybody down on the ground scrambling for the football.
Yeah.
He's standing there holding it in the air, and the officials talking about it was inconclusive. I'm like, he's standing here with the football. What's inconclusive?
Well, you know.
He recovered his own fumble. But, you know, when you're getting bad calls, you're getting bad calls.
Yeah.
And this is just a bad week for the Browns to be able to face, you know, New England. Cody Kessler matching up against Brady, that's an unfair advantage. Terrell Pryor may have a great game, but Tom Brady will have a greater game, Charles.
Well, thinking of having a great game, this final segment is sponsored by One Life America Life Insurance. We're the leaders in the country when it comes to final expense. We're also looking to hire over 1,000 life insurance brokers to go out and help protect American families, and also by Beneath His Wings Foundation, and also by CYNN Entertainment when it comes to promotions. Cynthia Evans, she's the best when it comes to promotions in Northern California. Big C, just a couple more games we'll hit on that might be marquee games coming up this week. A game I really want to see is the Atlanta Falcons going into Denver in the Mile High City, and they're playing the Broncos, who have to find a better situation at quarterback. Can Matt Ryan go to a Mile High and keep throwing for over 300 to 400 yards a game, Big C?
Well, if you look at Matt Ryan in his last 2 weeks, he looked like he was earning his paycheck, Charles.
Yeah.
I mean, he understands that he has to have balance in his offense. His running game, he has a tandem of backs that have done a wonderful job, and that has changed the tempo of Atlanta's offense.
Yeah.
Their defense, I mean, they still gave up 35 points last week to Carolina, so the defense is not stalwart. They just outscored people in the last 2 games against the Raiders and the Panthers.
Yeah.
And so their defense is going to have to stop somebody. But on the other hand, you look at Denver. They got that lights-out defense. They got to Tampa Bay last week to 7
they're
points.
amazing. They're amazing on defense.
And so whoever walks into the stadium against Denver got to strap it on. I mean, that job got to be tight.
Thinking
They're going to dangle some things.
Oh, that hurts when I think about how tight my jockstrap was, Big C, when I played back in the day. But I also want to say that Denver defense, they've only given up 64 points in 4 games. They've scored 111 points. So that's a very tough team to score on against on defense. Now, Atlanta, on the other hand, they're 3-1. They've scored 152 points, but they've given up 124. So that's a game that Denver should handle because their defense is simply too tough. And also, right around the other parts of the world of sports, we want to look at the NBA starting up pretty soon. They had preseason started. How did Houston, they won 131 against Shanghai. It was 131-94. Real Madrid 142, Oklahoma City 137. I don't think they played defense down there in the preseason, Big C. Milwaukee over Chicago 93-91, Memphis 102, Orlando 97. It was Dallas over Charlotte 95-88, and Denver beat Toronto 108-106, Big C. We also have some WNBA scores to report in the WNBA playoffs. The Minnesota Lynx are up 3-0 over Phoenix, and also the Los Angeles leads Chicago in their series 2-1. So I know we spend a lot of time on NFL and college football because those are the hot sports. But you know, hockey is also in the preseason, and it was Philadelphia 4, the Rangers 3 in overtime, Washington 2-1 over St. Louis, and the New York Islanders 4, New Jersey 3, and Winnipeg 4, and Ottawa 2. Big C, as we wrap up today's show, I just want to get your thoughts. We have Major League Baseball starting the playoffs tonight. We have a great setting up in Toronto. Also, some football again this week is going to be great. But the NBA starting next week. I just want to get your thoughts on what you're looking forward to the most, Big C, and I'll let you close the show.
Well, you know, I look at the NBA starting season, Charlton, but it's just a preseason. I look at college football shaking itself out. The selection committee is going to have a real tough time this year. We're going to have some teams that should have been in there, not in there. You know, you may have at the end of this season, Jonathan, as many as 6 undefeated teams in college football, which is really going to leave them in a quandary. You know, the heritage universities are going to get in there. But, you know, my main point right now, I want to touch on Colin Kaepernick once again. Yeah. You know, it seems to have died down a little bit, prejudice and racism towards him. But I want African Americans to understand this about Colin Kaepernick. Yeah. The Museum of African American History just opened last week in Washington, D.C. Yeah. One of the most prominent things in there is the Bible of Nat Turner. Okay? The Bible. Nat Turner led so many I can't even think of the word right now, but he led so many blacks to freedom, Charlton. Yeah. Because he took a stance. Yeah. He took a stance against the divide in America. He felt that we no longer should be embellished in poverty and slavery. And so he took a stance. Yeah. That's the same type of stance that Colin Kaepernick has taken. He's taken it through the sports world in a non-violent way. Yeah. But he's gotten that same racial outcry that Nat Turner received. Yeah. Because he did something against the mainstream. You should be happy being here. It's like telling a woman she should be happy in an abusive relationship. Yeah, that's true. Because she got a roof over her head. Yeah. And you want to go out there, and it's like that. Yeah. And so you can't turn a blind eye on equality and injustice in America. We're the greatest nation in the world, but also the greatest abusive nation in the world. Yeah. We can talk about foreign countries with leaders that are, you know, unjust towards their own people. Yeah. But our people are unjust towards each other. And so if sports is a vehicle led by Colin Kaepernick's stance, being followed by many others throughout the United States, and those who are prejudiced against his stance, sometimes they just don't understand what they see, and they don't feel like letting other people put their 2 cents in. And we understand that's part of what happens in any society. We are called the land of the free and the home of the brave. And in order to be free, you got to be willing to fight for it, Big C. You got to talk about it. You got to make sure that everybody understands that we're all in this thing together. And speaking of being together, every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time worldwide, you can follow Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeart Radio Network. We are the #1 show in the universe, according to the good old boys that vote for it. And I also want to tell everybody, let's keep our women safe. If you notice anyone going through any type of trouble, please call 911. Don't let them go through it on their own. And as we always say, Monday through Friday, 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time worldwide, please follow Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeart Radio Network. And we always want to tell you that we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.